Hello everyone, my name is George, and in this video I'm going to show you how to migrate data assets from Hive Metastore, legacy world of Databricks, to Unity Catalog, the new world. Why would you like to do that? Because Hive Metastore was built for one workspace. Most of organizations today are running 3, 5, 10, hundreds of workspaces, and every time you add a workspace in Hive Metastore, you are copying, pasting permissions, recreating tables, redoing security configuration, and this effort compounds. And the technical depth also compounds with it. With Unity Catalog, everything becomes much simpler. Unity Catalog is built for multi-workspace reality. You have one metastore and one governance layer across every environment. If you have dev test production, it's still connected to one metastore. So instead of your data engineering team spending 30-50% of their time on access management and configuration, they can actually spend that time on building data assets that you care most, right? So this is why it makes sense to have Unity Catalog in place and to migrate from Hive Metastore. Now let's jump into the practice. All right, so what I'm going to show you in this video, this is a demo, how to migrate certain assets. And we will start here with the left side. This is the playbook. We'll start with the left side, tables and views legacy. So basically on the Hive Metastore, we'll have a couple of tables and views. 3 of them are managed tables, and we have also one table, which is an external table. External table, it means that the file it's actually on Azure storage account, and we map that storage account to the Hive Metastore. We also have some views that just join some data. In this view, the fact sales, we basically join the dimensions and the fact table together. And this view is then also used in the job and workflow that we have it. Then we have groups and users. We have here one workspace group. So at the workspace level, we have created one group, which is not in the console, account console. I'm going to show you this. And we have to migrate this user group from workspace to account as source. And we also have here a job, which is basically triggering a notebook for the view, the sales report view. And the environment that we are going to use a shared cluster with LTS 17.3. And as environment locally, I also have Visual Studio Code installed with the following extension: Databricks CLI, Databricks UCX install, and Azure CLI. Now, what is this UCX install? If we go to the website, it says use the UCX utilities to upgrade your workspace to Unity Catalog. So this is exactly what we are going to use in this migration. And you have to install the CLI. These are the prerequisites here. You need to have network access. You need to have the specific roles and permission. And this is how also you can install it locally. I already did this in my Visual Studio Code environment. So please go to this website. You'll have here more information about UCX and how to install it. And now let's jump into the Databricks environment. I'm going to show you all the assets here. So moving now to the Databricks portal, I'm going to start first with the cluster, which is called UCX Migration Cluster. We are going to use this cluster to run the setup. Now, if we go to the settings and identity and access, we'll find here our user group, which you can see now the source, it's here workspace. This group was created locally for this workspace only and is not compatible with Unity Catalog. So let's see if UCX can help us with this one. I created this user group using CLI because this is not possible anymore to create it from the UI itself. I just wanted to show you the example. Now, if we go to the catalog and check the data, I basically have here in my organization, these are already Unity catalogs, but I have here UCX preparation, and I use this catalog, the default schema. I used to create a data volume, and here I put all the CSVs files that I'm going to use for creating the tables. And if I go to the workspace, the playbook, set up the environment, I'm going to walk you through a little bit what this means. So first I'm going to use the Hive Metastore, and I'm going to create this UCX legacy. This is a database that we are going to use as source for our migration. Here is just an example how to use a mount point. We are not going to use it in this case. I just want to test it. By the way, this is the storage account key. I'm going to show you this. I'm going to delete it also after this one. It's not good practice to put it here, but for this demo, it's fine. And in the next step, we are going to read that data, the CSV files from the volumes. So we have the customers, we have the products, and we have the fact sales that we are reading from the volumes. And these are actually here my 3 managed tables. Okay, these are my 3 managed tables, and I have an extra here, an extra table, personal, external. So this is how we created here the 3 managed table in Hive Metastore, schema UCX legacy. And for the external table, I'm going to use again this key, and this time I'm going to read from the path, from this path here, which is the path where I saved the data for personal external or people external, to save it into my personal external UCX schema. So what does it mean? So if I go to the storage account, I'm going to find here UCX personal external, and this is the CSV file. Now you can see here also the parquet and the delta log, so it means it was converted to a delta table, and it should be an external one. So let's check that first. In the next step here, we also created a view, and let's check now the table that we have created. So first, we're going to show the tables that we have it in this schema. Okay, so we have in this database these tables and views. And now let's going to run this describe extended for personal external. So this should be an external table. And as you can see here, we have type external, and it's point to that location. So this is very good, exactly what we wanted. And for the other 3 tables, if we run this one, team customers, for example, it will show that this is a managed table, and the location is the DBFS file path. Okay, so this is the managed table, one of them. And we also have one view, which is this one here. Great, so we have our data assets in place. Now what we are going to do next, I'm going to show you also the job here. I have a job called UCX job legacy. And this job is triggering a notebook. I go to tasks. It's triggering a notebook called legacy sales report. I ran it once, so that worked. And these are the assets that we wanted to work in this demo. And for the environment, I'm going to switch to Visual Studio Code. And here the first thing I'm going to use is the profile. So I have here many profiles, but for this demo, I'm going to use this UCX migration profile that I have created for this demo especially. And this points already to my Databricks workspace. All right, so let's jump into the real migration work. All right, so we are now in the Visual Studio Code. Let me clear the screen here and make it bigger. The first command that we are going to test is this one, Databricks lab install UCX, and I'm going to use the profile that I showed before. All right, it's starting. It's installing UCX in using this Databricks profile. In the next step, we have to provide here an inventory database, which will be stored in Hive Metastore. So this is the database where after the scan, after the assets are scanned, the results will be saved into this database. And the default one is UCX. I'm going to use the default. Catalog to store the UCX artifacts. Again, UCX is fine. Log level default is info. I'm fine with that. Number of threads default 8. Also fine with that. We'll have to provide a backup prefix. So it will be db/db-temp. Also fine. And here we have to choose how to map the workspace groups, right? And here match by name, apply a prefix or a suffix, match by external ID, some regex functions, and in this case I'm going to use match by name. Comma separate the list of workspace group names to migrate. If not specified, we'll use all account level groups with matching names to workspace level groups. So this is fine. These are this is actually the user group that we have created here, which is at workspace level, and we want to migrate it at account level. So I'm fine with that. Comma separate the list of databases to migrate. If not specified, we will use all databases in Hive Metastore. So if we go to Hive Metastore, we'll see here that we'll have the UCX legacy and dim customers, dim products. These are the tables here and the view. Now I'm going to provide this database here. Comma separate the list of database to migrate. So UCX legacy. I'm not interested into the default one. Do you want to skip tackle migration when migrating tables? So the default is no. Tackle is table access control list, and these are legacy Hive Metastore permissions systems, right? I'm going to choose here no. So the default is no. Do you want to define a default owner group for all tables and schemas? No. Does given workspace block internet access? This also no. Do you want to trigger assessment job after the installation? Here we would like to say yes. Reconciliation threshold in percentage. Default is fine. No Hive Metastore lineage collection init script exists. Do you want to create one? This also no. And select Pro Serverless SQL Warehouse to run assessment dashboards on. For that, so it's already recognized here my workspace, my warehouse. I'm going to choose one. Install pool ID to be set in cluster policy for all workflow clusters, none. So this option here is very important. So if Hive Metastore contains managed table with external location, right? So not the DBFS route. We don't have this in our demo. We have managed tables with DBFS route. And for this, we want to copy the data from manage Hive Metastore to manage UC catalog. So the option here is one. Parallels from migration. Let's keep default because our tables are small. Min workers for auto scale job cluster for table migration. This is also fine. Maximum workers also fine. Opening file in browser and continue installing. I'm going to choose here no, the default, but I copy the link. Let me actually show you how this looks like. So this is how the config looks like in Databricks. This is the config.yaml file, and I'm going to show you also the path afterwards. Okay, so I choose no. Open job overview in browser. I'm going also to choose no, but I'm going to copy this one separately to have it also here. So the option here is no. Open assessment job URL that just triggered. So it triggered the assessment job, which is this one here. So this is a README file with a UCX assessment. It's interesting to read it, what it's actually doing and can do under the hood. And this is our UCX assessment job that was triggered on our Databricks workspace. So this is coming from this step here. I choose here no. And the assessment job is running. Meantime, I'm going to show you how the workspace looks right now. So if we go here, as I said, in workspace, we'll have this application folder now. And under UCX, you will find all the relevant information in the state of our migration, including the config YAML file. This was generated by UCX from the Visual Studio Code. Other files here, the README, we already saw that, the state of the JSON. If we go to dashboards, we'll find here progress, assessment, main and estimates. We have an assessment interactive, so we'll find here information about how good the assessment or the migration is going. So this is the assessment overview. The job is not yet ready. We'll come back to it. We can see here also this dashboard. So these were generated actually automatically. Let's check the job. You can see here this is still in status running, the assessment. And you can also find here the other jobs that were automatically generated, all of them with this UCX as prefix. All right, so the migration assessment is finished. I had to run it several times because I had here one failure at the beginning. It says success with failure. And if we take a closer look at this one, it was based on this setup tackle, but the problem was with my Azure quota exceeded. So it is about the compute power, and I had to increase the Azure quota on my Azure subscription. And after that, I ran it several times here and all succeeded. So now the assessment is finished. We can also take a look at crawl tables. And here we can check the assessment of the tables and if the scan was done correctly. And we can see here the scanning was starting for UCX legacy, and it finished scanning the 5 tables. If we go back to our catalog, Hive Metastore, UCX legacy, and these are our 5 tables, including the view. After that, I also run the migrate tables, which is this job here. You can run it via UI or just accessing the Visual Studio Code. And if we take a look at this one, this job should migrate actually the external tables, the DBFS root non-delta and the delta tables, and also the views. So first the tables and then the view according to the dependency here. And let's take a look first at the root delta table. Finish migrate tables task, migrated tables 3 out of 3. So these are exactly the 3 tables here that are delta tables on DBFS. So Excels, team products, and team customers. We can also check this part here in this catalog. You see legacy. And these are our 3 tables plus the view. If we go back to the job and click on the view, we should also see the log here for one view, which is exactly this one. So one thing is missing here, which is the external table. So let's take a look at that part. UCX migrate tables is external table. And if we scroll down, it says here no tables found to migrate with type external sync. Now why is that? Let's take a look at it. We're going to debug this situation. Now if we take a look at how we created that external table, is because we use this account key of the storage account on Azure, right? And when UCX is trying to run this query, sync table from Hive Metastore is first checking for an external location that is pointing to this path. And this is exactly where the problem is, because it just asking, is there an external location register that covers this path? And the answer is no, because the access was configured via raw storage key in Spark and not through UC external location. So let's create an external location to point to that path. For that, we switch to catalog, settings, credentials, UCX migration cred, and this is pointing to this connector ID, connect dbk33. If I go to my environment, it's exactly this connector here, access connector for Databricks, which has access to data store. And in this data store, as you have previously seen, we can find our UCX, people external, and our delta table. So that, to summarize, this access connector has access to our data, and this is our credential here that we are going to use to create the external storage. So for the external storage, we go to external location, and you can see indeed here that we don't have any external location created for that specific path. So let's go create external location. We're going to give here a name. Let's say this one. ABFS path is pointing to this one. And the storage credential is the one that I showed before. Let's try to create it. Now with the external location created, we can run again the migrate tables. So as I said, you can run it from UI or you can run it from your Visual Studio Code. This time I'm going to run it from here. If we go back to the portal, we can now see that migrate tables is running for the second time. We can go inside the job Now it's acquiring instances. We'll go back once this is finished. All right, so the migrate table run is now completed. We can check for the remain table, which is the external one. If we go inside the run, we'll find here that this time it found that table, migrate table, and it finished successfully. So let's check it in the catalog. So this is our catalog. You see legacy. And now we can find here our people external table. We can check sample data first. So that's fine. And if we go to details, we'll find here storage location, which is pointing to our external path. We have now migrated our 4 tables in one view. So where we are right now in the migration process. If we look our mind map here, so we are in this stage where we have migrated tables and views. All 3 managed tables, 1 external and the view. Let's check also the view. So this should be the fact sales. Now it's pointing to the new catalog. And if we go and create a query just to see if it's working, run all, and we should find the data here. Amazing. So we are finished with this part here. Now with regards to the workspace group, we had here one UCX migration local group. For that, I had to go here into the pipelines again and run this migrate groups. And if we switch to settings, identity and groups, now we can find here this UCX migration local, which is at account level. And the initial one, UCX migration local, was renamed. It still stays workspace, and it was renamed with db temp UCX migration. So this can be deleted now, and this is the new user group at the account level. So this part is also done. It also contained 1 member. So this was the initial member. If we go back to the db temp, it should contain the same one. All right, so this is done by, just to summarize this is done by running the job migrate groups. So this covers these groups and user part at the workspace level. Now let's switch to jobs and workflows, because as I mentioned before, we have here UCX job legacy. Let's take a look what is this job doing. So if we go inside the tasks, it's a very simple sales report which is pointing to a notebook on this path. How can we migrate this job actually? If we open this notebook, we can now see this is pointing to the Hive Metastore. And this is not what we actually want, right? So how can we do that? For the last part of the job, we are going to run assess workflows, which is basically triggering a job to assess the current situation of our workflows for potential UC compatibility issues. But this is not going to change our code actively. This will not going to change the schema and the catalog from Hive Metastore to the new migrated catalog. So let's see how this works. If we switch to UI, we'll find here assess workflows. I run it once, and it should flag here our workflow. If we go to the run, assess workflows, and you'll find here that is linting workflows 1 So it found our legacy sales report workflow. And how can we basically move now the code from there. We can also check here in the table. So the UCX legacy, if you go to jobs, it should now find here your job, right? So this is finding the job successfully, but we have to reconcile the code. So how can we do that? Basically for that, I have created a code. What is this code doing? It's basically taking the job ID, and for every task that it found in that job, and if the task is notebook, in our case it's a notebook, for every task that it found in the job, it is replacing the Hive Metastore UCX legacy with our new catalog and schema. And it is also checking if there are changes there. So if you run right now, I already ran once, you see here that there is no change needed because it is already done. And then you can also trigger this job again programmatically to see if that worked. So this is the new run ID. If we go to the sales report itself, right now it's pointing to the new catalog and schema. So no Hive Metastore identified here anymore. And if we go back to the jobs, now the job was triggered for the third time. So it succeeded. If we go inside, we'll find here that it is pointing the notebook to the right catalog and schema, and is also returning the results. And this is how you can use UCX to migrate your assets from legacy Hive Metastore to Unity Catalog. So just to summarize it, in this session, we have identified and migrated successfully 3 managed tables, 1 external table, 1 view, 1 group from workspace to account, which also contain 1 user, 1 job and workflow. We assess the workflow, and then programmatically we migrate the code content. There's also other options here. So if your job is simple, you can do it manually, or even better, you can use now Genie, the Genie assistant, telling him to change all the relevant reference in your code. And to conclude, this was the environment that we used. We have used partially Visual Studio Code just to show you and exemplify how this works, how to install, and how to use the Databricks Labs UCX commands. And some of the jobs we also triggered from the UI just to exemplify how it works. We identify also a couple of challenges. For example, for the assessment, for the first time, we had to identify or debug this pipeline. And the reason for failing it was that I haven't any quota left for the compute power. I had to increase the quota on my Azure subscription, and that after that worked successfully. So that was it for this demo. I hope you enjoyed. Until next one, enjoy Databricks.